Grade 7. That's good.
What's the viewership on this, any idea?
I haven't looked for a while.
Handful.
3. It depends on what the agenda is.
Probably.
A small handful.
Good.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, roll. Item number 2, are any changes to the agenda other than the additional list of bills? Okay. Take a motion to adopt the agenda when you're ready.
Second?
A motion and second to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, minutes of past meetings, financial report, a summary list of bills plus additional.
You all got an email earlier that the minutes included in the board packet were incorrect. I sent out corrected version and it was posted online as well. Not sure what happened. I did have some computer issues in the last several weeks, so we're gonna go with that. First page, page 5 of the financial report. You can see that is updated through June for last fiscal year. Kind of see where we ended with revenue, expenditures, and cash. Next page, of course, is your general fund summary, current year-to-date, and then your special revenues, current year-to-date, and the activity and proprietary funds year-to-date. Do you have any questions on that? After your board bills, on page 25, it's just a copy to show you that I've certified our multiple annual reports that are due by September 15th. And you'll approve or consider the special ed deficit later on in the meeting.
Jack, did you anticipate any additional bills going back to last year? No?
I should be all caught up, so you should not get an updated report after this since I've certified. If anything, then it would have to be an adjustment into next year's for prior years.
Okay.
I'm hoping not this late that we would get anything, but you never know.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
The last thing is usually our high cost fund, our special ed receipt, and we did receive that, so.
If there's no more questions on those items.
I have one, $70,000 to the city for the land across the street. I was thinking we approved that
In
like a
April,
long time ago.
yeah, 2020. So it finally recorded with the county.
So I had cut a check back in April of 2020, and then I waited and waited and waited, and we finally got what we needed, and our checks do say void within 90 days, so I reissued that check.
Okay.
In the additional list of bills, you'll see some recorder fees that are part of this as well. But yes.
Scratched my head over that one.
That's what it was, you're correct.
Any other questions on those items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including the additional bills handed out this evening.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the items as listed, plus the additional list of bills. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item 4, recognition. Congratulations to staff, students, and community. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, so I provided you with 4 items for recognition. We did announce the homecoming court, so congratulations to those 10 students. Homecoming's here in a week, we'll get those festivities kicked off. You probably saw it with all the items there, but coronation will be 2 weeks, or excuse me, a week from this Wednesday. So congratulations to those 10 seniors.
How are they chosen?
I think the seniors,
Senior class votes on the 10, and then the 10 are voted on by the whole high school.
king and queen. Yep. Just this morning, received an email from Jared Graddert, a member of the chain gang who worked the game at West Sioux. And as you know, that group of folks are on the visiting sidelines. And he sent an email just kind of praising the coaching staff and our football players, but he specifically called out the coaching staff for their class. You know, words of encouragement, you know, actions throughout the course of the night. And, you know, in his message, he said, I don't send messages like this very often. So, just one example of you can win in more ways than just the scoreboard. And so, want to give my public recognition to not only Coach Eben, but all the assistant coaches on staff and sideline personnel. So, and then the final 2 recognitions, Mr. Pletsky's in here, but again, continuing with our energy conservation materials from the utilities. Anything you want to add about that, Mr. P?
Oh, I just think it's nice to couple with the community along with the Missouri River Energy Service. Yeah, $25 of materials per kid. We're talking a good chunk of money that is given to us and aided in our curriculum, my STEM curriculum with my 5th graders. So
Thanks for reaching out to them and that partnership. Also, Premier Communications, troubleshooting along with Mr. Eben and Software Unlimited, which is our accounting software. Last week in August, Jackie was without access for a couple days, but thanks to Premier Communications for getting that problem solved. It was a firewall issue, you know, for whatever reason. What do you call it? A certificate was switched on that had been previously switched off. I have no idea. We don't believe it's malicious by any means, but it just didn't allow Jackie to do her work for a couple days. So
Monday through, I got access late on Thursday, so.
just in time for us to write a check for that new bus that we got. So.
It was perfect. Had to almost go back to the old days, writing a handwriting check.
Principals, anybody else you'd like to recognize?
Okay, thank you. Item 5, communications. Public participation on non-agenda items. I don't believe anybody's signed up to speak. Any additional correspondence?
No.
Okay. Reports. Principal will start with Mr. Harmon.
This is just for your records, but spring you approved the purchase and adoption of a new science curriculum. It was called Pearson.
Yep.
And now that company has been purchased, by Savas. So when you see the name Savas, we didn't change anything, it's just a new company. So what we've done so far with that curriculum, since it has been a while since teachers, this just gives a timeline of what we've done so far and what we intend to do for our teaching staff to continue with it. On Friday, August 20, we spent 2 hours in the afternoon with teachers in the elementary gym. Mr. Pletsky was there, and we tried to answer as many questions as we could, having them start to go through the portal and finding the different units, the parts of it, kind of just playing around with those, getting there, make sure their username and password was signed up before students came. A very big plus is the implementation of our Plc Wednesdays. We've had 2 Wednesdays so far, where an early science group and a late or upper science group have met. Mr. P and myself have been to both those groups on both those days. That's where they are really starting to dig in and figure things out as far as the scope and sequence of their units, where they're starting, how they work with their standards. Also troubleshooting anything that we're finding out, and then Mr. P's been just a wonderful amount of resource to go back to Savas and figure out anything that the teachers have questions on. So we conclude that with, we have another, is it 2 hours?
Yes.
Another 2 hours that we can use anytime during the first year for additional training and questions. The teachers are looking at that to be used as soon as we can, or sooner than later, so that, you know, as they start digging these units, they feel the most comfortable with being able to access the online resources. Comments that I've received from the teachers so far is, this is a very different style of questioning, of student learning, which is all good. I've even had a couple of teachers say they're gonna send home the assessments to the parents because they needed to see the extent of the level of questioning that these kids are gonna have to go into. It's not just fact recollection, it's not just find the term in the book, it's very deep thinking, which is what we need. I mean, we need to beef that up. And so as they're first getting into it, the kids are really, I guess, shell shocked on the level they need to think. So it's not just able to grasp a concept, but how do you apply that concept to our world, and which is really good. So the implementation has been very positive, I think. We've seen a lot of buy-in from teachers, which is awesome. We haven't had any major glitches so far, and we hope not to have any this year. So, Mr. P, anything to add?
No, about the questions, Savas is the company that actually makes the ISAFs for science. So, and they are higher level thinking, like Mr. Harmon was saying. We're talking a lot of inquiry, a lot of situational type questions, dealing with the vocabulary and the concepts that the students are studying, and when they're doing their science within their labs. Buy-in has been excellent.
Yeah, yes.
The other thing we looked at when we were adopting the sciences, we just didn't want a textbook or online materials. We wanted kids doing experiments and making observations and developing their own hypotheses. So we've got a ton of resources that kind of Mr. P keeps up in his office, and we've got some extra storage. But every unit of study has a specific experiment all the way down to preschool. So we got materials from preschool through 8th grade, and like I said, every unit there's an inquiry or an experiment or something where we're doing science. Where in the past, we might read about an experiment, or we might do an online experiment. This time, this curriculum is getting dirty with science. So that was one of the big reasons why we wanted this curriculum. Thanks, gentlemen.
Any questions?
I have kind of just a question. With getting this new curriculum, are we giving our teachers enough time to kind of get familiar with the curriculum before they start the year? Are they?
Well, I think with this one here, I think the answer to that is definitely yes, because I believe our limited exposure to science before gives them some time to work through it. And with our Wednesday, the very first Wednesday we start working on this, you know, we have some grades that are already digging in their first unit. So they felt okay with that. That's the last question we asked on that Friday was, okay, so how do you feel? And knowing that they had that first Wednesday, another hour to meet with their group, they felt pretty good with it. So we have some that are waiting. They're working on some reading skills. That's after the fast testing, but then they're gonna dig into here too. So that's where we know the buy-in has been there, because we haven't had any groups that are resistant saying, you know, or not getting into it. They've already got supplies from Mr. P and they're doing the experiments, so,
The Wednesday conversations are very, very good.
yeah.
Now, the level of support for the science curriculum is not as high as it was for the literacy. And if you remember, we had a professional learning consultant from Houghton Mifflin that came out and spent multiple days with us over the course of that first year of implementation. This time around, it's been virtual. And so that's the difference between this round of curriculum, the science curriculum, and the literacy. Also remember that's pre-COVID too. And so some of these curriculum companies are really working virtually like a lot of other vendors are. So that'd be, yeah, one difference definitely is the on-site PD that we received previously with different curriculums versus this one.
Mr. P, you still happy with the choice?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon, Mr. P. Mr. Engelmann.
All right. I also have a little handout for you guys to follow along if you wish. A little bit different in my building, the 7 through 12 building, where we don't have kind of a consistent curriculum that everyone can get behind, knowing that many of us are sometimes on an island when it comes to our departments. So one of the things that I continually am trying to research and evaluate is what can we do as a staff that's meaningful to everyone, and what can, no, one thing that we can all get behind and kind of rally around and, get everybody's buy-in. And this year, after talking to my teacher leaders, after talking with administration, one of the things we want to go back to is a model we previously used was a book study. So I have a book here in front of me, it's called Culturize. It's written by Jimmy Casas, and Jimmy Casas is kind of he's an academic leader, he's a speaker, he's 22 years of administrative experience, most notably in Bettendorf, so just in this state here locally. I went to one of his conferences many years ago and it was fantastic. He's very engaging, but he goes back to some of the main points, and that's establishing relationships. It's modeling what it takes to be a quality educator as well as a quality citizen, getting people to buy into different initiatives and improvement methods, and also just buying into expectations and kind of getting the most out of your people in your organization. So knowing what we came off of last year, dealing with COVID, we kind of had some animosity, we had some low morale at times. We had some people maybe that weren't excited to get up and come to work as they normally would have been, some students that were in the same boat. I figured this was as good a choice as any to kind of re-energize and kind of recreate and sustain a positive working culture. So I'm one of those people that I think curriculum is great. The resources that we can provide our staff and our students is excellent, but it comes down to people. And if we can put some energy into people and increase their capacity to lead, increase their capacity to invest in relationships with who's most important, our students, we can we continue to achieve at high levels. So reflective of our mission and vision here as a district, that's kind of my goal this year. It's my goal personally, it's my goal professionally, and with our staff as a whole, to get better at re-engaging with our students, our community, and each other, to just create a better working environment and to double down on what we can achieve. So it kind of couples with the district's goal to become better collaborators. We're working on a PLC model, and to be able to collaborate effectively, we got to trust one another. We got to lean on each other's expertise, got to open our doors, not work on isolation, and this is one of the tools that I think we're going to be able to achieve that. So basically it's me, and there are upwards, I think we have to have, I coupled it with, I submitted a syllabus and some course descriptions to the Northwest AEA, which then approved it to be worth 1 renewal credit for anyone that takes the class. So not only the teachers have to take it here as a building professional development, they can also achieve 1 renewal credit through the AEA. So if they're not happy with that, they'll never be happy. So, but it's been good. We had a 2-hour session. I lead the class. We lead it through Canvas. There is some work that has to be completed. There's essays that have to be submitted. There's obviously readings, a few other things a few other activities that we're going to have to do throughout the course of the year to achieve all of our goals. So yeah, it's a hybrid. It's in person as well as virtual learning for our staff.
Jason, when are you doing the in-person portion of it?
The in-person portion is predominantly done during our full day and service days. So we carve out 2 to 3 hours, and we sit and collaborate, we get small groups. That's what I guess we've only had 1 session. Our other sessions, are gonna piggyback off of those Wednesday early outs, and it's gonna be more or less from 4 to 5. But they're gonna get the assignment ahead of time so they can read an article, they can submit, I'm gonna have surveys, I'm gonna throw out continuously throughout the year, they're gonna have to complete, and having those ongoing conversations throughout the year.
So is this something that the entire staff is doing? I'm assuming teachers by likely?
Yep. 32 participants. By even 7 to 12. Now, you don't have to take it for credit. That is just an option. Everybody has to.
You just have to take it.
You have to be a part of it. But if you're a part of it, I think we had, last time I saw, we had about 75% of the staff that are gonna take it for renewal credit. So that's their charge, $35, which is a great fee. I mean, that's a good price for renewal credit, and I have to get so many of those, so double bonus. Any other questions?
Full year, this is, when's the end, I guess?
Full year, so it'll end in May. Yep. So we were gonna space it out, which we couldn't get, I mean, this won't take you a full year to read. So we're gonna space it out, and that's where, other article, the first week, we didn't even have the books in place yet, so we read an article discussing school culture and so forth. So we're gonna continue to add those in, because this book won't get you through a full year. It's one thing, I researched a lot of different books and looked at a couple different things that we could provide, and this is pretty consistent with some things I've seen other administrators do in the state and obviously outside the state.
It's good to have that reminder, refresher throughout the year.
Yep.
Not just do it all at one time and then it kind of fades away throughout the year, but you're kind of
Yep.
re-energizing, so to speak, throughout the year, so I think that's a good
Yep.
approach to do it.
Yeah, we did a team building exercise the very first session, we'll do team building exercises throughout. The goal is kind of to make, we're all excited in August. When it comes to January, we want it to feel like August. So, good time.
Temperature be a little different.
Be a little different, yeah. We'll make the most of it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack, anything on your end?
I do not. What I was gonna report on, I included in our consent agenda.
Mr. Jorth, I'll have you go first.
You bet. School bus bids just went out today to vendors. If you recall, we had our biannual transportation inspection in June. Bus 10 was placed out of service, just had more items to repair than were of value to the bus. So we put bus bids out for that, hoping by October we'll have those for approval. Estimating about $120,000 for a 71 passenger bus. And then all of our buses, starting with this one going forward, are required to have seatbelts. And so that's kind of why the budget for these buses will be going up. In addition to, if you've bought a vehicle in the last 6 months, your vehicle prices have went through the roof. So buses are in the same boat. And then as a result of that bus being out of service, and then we also had bus 3, which was placed out of service, I think, before I got here, so 4 years ago. We'll be advertising in the paper for disposition of both of those buses. So if anybody happens to ask you why we're getting rid of 2 buses, that's what we're doing. We're only purchasing 1 bus as a replacement. It's not that we're having 1 fewer bus in our fleet. We'll still maintain the same number of buses in the fleet.
What was number 10 used for? Was that spare?
It was as spare as the one. This time of year, we typically ran back and forth for football, but it rarely left town on an activity route. And so wasn't a dire need to replace it right away. But the bus that we'll purchase with seatbelts will actually be used on the Dune route, and then that Dune route bus will become our spare. And so over the course of the next few bus purchases, they'll most likely go into the actual fleet of the routes, because that's where we put the most miles on, used most frequently. And then those route buses will kind of cycle into the activity bus fleet, so to speak. So that's kind of the plan going forward.
You want to touch on at a high level so where we're at with the electronic board solutions and then our plan for next month with presentations?
Yeah, so starting, I'll do the second one first. Starting next month, I plan to invite teachers and students to make presentations instead of just written reports from the principals. So we can hear from teachers in the classroom, students on the different things that are happening. Our first one will be Mr. Rockhill, FFA, as they're making plans for national convention. So that's what you can kind of expect for the rest of the year. And again, that way you guys get to hear it right from the trenches, from the kids and the teaching staff. As far as online kind of board packet. You know, I've been in contact with 3 different vendors, kind of sifting through what our options are to move to more of an electronic board agenda. Not only access for board members in the community, but maybe more efficient for Jackie and I as we're putting those together over the course of the month. Principals, if they've got anything to add, we can give different people access instead of, like on Friday, for example, you know, putting all that information together, handing it off to Jackie, she's making copies and emailing them out. So more of a modern board agenda process. So that's kind of the plan. So I'll have a recommendation in October based upon that research.
Thank you. Okay, we'll circle back to board member reports. Board members have anything? I'll just note that I know last month I talked about some agenda changes for this month. All the health issues going through my family the past few weeks, it didn't get done. So we'll see if we can do something next month. Items, so nothing else under reports. We'll move on to item 7, old business, which we don't have anything to take care of there either. So moving on to new business. Item A, consider adoption of family and community partnership district goal.
So in the packet, pages 26 and 27, if you recall, we had our work session back in July in regards to the district goal, kind of defining how we want to partner with families in the community. And a few board members provided some edits to that conversation over the course of the last couple months. And so you can see there, based upon that feedback, it's my recommendation to adopt the partner with families in community goal. As stated, with a welcoming environment, the Central Lyon School District will partner with families and the community to support the development of all students. School staff will engage in meaningful two-way communication with families to support learning at home and school. Central Lyon staff members will collaborate with community members to identify meaningful partnerships that expand the learning opportunities for students.
Discussion on that recommendation. I know Mr. Jorth gave us a handout last meeting on the 12th of August that maybe had a little bit more depth as to how we came to that, or how you came to that recommendation and how we as a board developed some of those key components. Discussion, thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Relationships. Right?
Absolutely. I entertain a motion when you're ready.
Make a motion to approve the partner with families and community district goal.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the language for District Number 4, partner with families in the community. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item B, consider update to the district's mission statement.
So again, similar process, we had conversation about wanting to kind of update the language in regards to our mission statement. You can see right there in the middle of page 26, I had our previous mission statement, which was to provide an education, the opportunity for all students to become productive lifelong learners. You know, we had talked about we want to do more than just provide an education. And so we kicked around a few different adjectives and some of different language potential for revision for the mission statement. And so based upon that, you know, I recommend updating the mission statement to provide an exceptional education, opportunities, and resources for all students to become productive lifelong learners.
Discussion on that? More of a little massage with a couple tweaks.
Yeah.
No major overhauls.
I think the focus, as we've talked about, was just, we're not gonna provide an average education or average resources to our teachers. We want it to be of a higher kind of standard, higher quality, so to speak, and that's where the term exceptional came from, in the addition of resources, as we look at everything that goes into providing that opportunity for all kids, whether it's school buses or curriculum or the human resources. Have a high standard for ourselves, and I think our community also has that high expectation. We're not just gonna do the bare minimum.
Thoughts, edits? Looks good.
All right, let's do it.
That's good.
Entertain a motion when you're ready.
I will make a motion to approve the mission statement language as listed.
Second?
A motion and second to approve the revised district mission statement as noted in the board packet. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item C, let's see if I can get through this.
Yeah.
Consider resolution approving the revenue purpose statement, ordering an election on a revenue purpose statement to authorize expenditures from revenue received from the State Secure and Advanced Division for Education, otherwise known as the SAVE Fund, ordering an election on the question of continuing to levy a voter-approved physical plant and equipment property tax, otherwise known as PEPL Fund, and ordering the publication of a notice of election.
So, again, language included in pages 29 through 34 come right from legal counsel. And what this does is, or the reason we need to do this is, SAVE was extended by the legislature a couple years ago. Its previous sunset was 2029. If you remember, the board made the decision to bond against the SAVE and PEPL accounts when we did the locker rooms, or excuse me, the weight room, wrestling room, and the security entrances. And you bonded right up until 2029. Well, now that's been extended an additional 20 years. In order to go beyond that 2029, if we should make another ask, you could go all the way to 2049, so an additional 20 years. So at some point, we need to extend that, and I think with this year's election, putting it on with the two open seats makes sense. And then extending the voted PEPL, which has been in place since 1993 at 67 cents. Again, not looking to expand the PEPL, the uses of PEPL, other than, or excuse me, or the tax ask, but just extending it for an additional 10 years beyond its expiration at the end of the 22-23 school year. So we're a little ahead of schedule, but there's nothing that limits us from doing it at this point.
We did the same 10 years ago, or 9 years ago.
So I tried to kind of summarize what the revenue purpose statement says we can spend SAVE dollars on. Same thing with PEPL, instead of all the legalese that went into the ballot language. But, you know, as you can see, at the very bottom, kind of if you're getting asked questions about, you know, how do we spend that PEPL money, you know, technology, so our one-to-one initiative with kids, the infrastructure for that technology, whether it's the cabling to the wireless access points to the servers, school buses, school vehicles, and then repairs and maintenance of the grounds. So if the board approves that, we'll start to kind of remind our patrons that this is how your money's being used. It has been used over the course of the last 10 years. That's what our conversation later tonight in work session is kind of outlining the future for those projects as well.
Brent or Jackie, where are we at with the Pearl levy in that approval process? We're like 5 years out yet?
Nope, it is forever.
Oh, it is?
Yep. Once we approved it back in 2012, no, earlier than that, I'd have to look. It is a forever implemented tax. The only way it can be taken away is if the legislature would take it away, which has been discussed.
Yep.
So, it was a simple majority, and once
Yeah,
it's in, it's in.
It's a 13-cent
Yeah.
levy, and until, like Jackie said, the legislature changes the authorized use of that, or, our patrons would say, we don't want to spend that 13 cents any longer, it just remains.
Okay.
Yep, and we've used it for, all the things allowed, whether it was playground equipment, our track. We've used it for some community ed things, and refinishing floors in those community rooms. So we feel as though we've been doing what we need to with it, but no, it is there to stay for now.
Any additional questions or discussion on that item? Just need a regular motion for this.
We need a regular motion, but then we need to do a roll call.
Roll call.
Mhm.
Okay. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion when you're ready.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve all those things that you said on there. That one.
Got it.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Jackie, roll call, please.
Jans,
Aye.
DeWitt,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Coop.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item D, consider request for maximum modified allowable growth and supplemental state aid, the amount of $280,802.35 for the 2020-2021 school year.
As you can see, I put certification page, I didn't include the entire supplement because it's a lot of information and there are names associated with it. But we do have 2 students that we are transporting, we did transport in 2021 to Sioux Falls for additional education, therapies and such, and so those dollars increased our ask. Otherwise, the majority of our spending in special ed is staffing. We don't have a lot of outside expenditures with special ed other than staffing. So that is the request, and what you're doing right now is basically just asking the state to give you back authority for those expenditures that you made.
Do we ever get reimbursement for any of that? It's all just purely.
Authority.
Authority. Yep.
Yep. And authority is the most important, so it's in the Iowa school finance world, so, yep. And we've been anywhere from, we've been in the $300,000 range before, and we've been down into the $150,000 range before, so kind of all over the board, depending on what our rosters are and what the needs of our students are.
Are you asking for that actual amount, or do we need to couch it with what you have in the memo here?
I am asking for that amount, that is what I certified. If they would come back and find an adjustment or something, then we'd have to approve or re-request, but that should be the amount.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for $280,802.35.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the maximum modified allowable growth. Supplemental state aid is listed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item E, consider contribution to Borman Forster Ballfield Playground Project.
In concert with the city, the Kiwanis Club, Carroll Street Treats, there's other community organizations that have been meeting over the course of the last couple weeks to put together a riverboat foundation grant. totaling $120,000 for a new playground up at the ball fields. Be kind of located, probably, I can maybe pull it up later, but there's a triangle piece of property between the new softball field, the outfield fence, the batting cages, and the parking lot. So that's kind of the location that we're planning. Dual purpose, not only softball and baseball and all those activities, but if you're up there right now, all the soccer games that go on in the fall. And so just another kind of amenity up there for families that are spending a lot of time, especially we're really trying to target kind of those 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds that are there to watch their siblings do all these different activities. So again, I'm asking for the school's contribution to be $15,000 towards this playground. If you look maybe through our materials, you got earmarked $15,000 from the Pearl levy, kind of as you mentioned there, Dave. It's called the playground levy for a purpose. The fiscal agent during the grant process will be the city. The city's planning to contribute $15,000 as well, and then, like I said, various other community groups an additional $30,000 to get us to $60,000 from the community. Ask for Riverboat for another $60,000. Move forward with a really nice playground up there.
What would be the time frame for construction?
So we're hoping, the grants are typically awarded in October, order before the snow flies so that we can begin installation next spring. So we can start using it next summer for the baseball and softball seasons.
Who owns the project?
So this, again, so all a part of that 2080 sharing agreement, right? So the city owns the land. We jointly share the expenses throughout the course of the year, whether it's the maintenance. And so the city would technically own the playground.
My question really more is who's gonna manage the installation of it? And make sure that it gets done, et cetera? Who's gonna go hire the people to do it, et cetera?
Yep, so the city,
The city's gonna do that? Okay.
yep, the city will be that kind of fiscal agent to see the project through.
Okay.
And then, Bruce Eckenrod right now manages the entire property out there along with our summer help to mow the grounds and make sure that it's all maintained throughout the course of the year. And then we split those costs, those annual costs, 50-50 going forward. So again, if we got repairs that need to be made to that in the future, again, it would be the city and the school that would make any of those repairs and kind of manage it going forward. Same thing with, insurance costs and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I was just more concerned about who's gonna make sure that it gets done and who's responsible for that process.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make another motion to approve the 15,000 to go towards the Mormon Forester Ball Fields playground equipment.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Got you down. You said it.
All right. Fine.
We have a motion and second to contribute $15,000 from the Pearl Fund for the new Mormon Forester Ball Field Playground project. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item F, list of policies for review. Mr. Jorth.
So the memo has all the policy review, first reading of the new policies as listed, and a result of the revisions and the new policies rescinding those 3 that are listed there. Happy to entertain any questions on the review. If approved at the first reading of those new policies, we'll bring them back for a second reading in October.
The longest review I think we've had in a while.
So this quarter comes out of the legislative session last year. So that's why there's so many policies for review this time around. Going forward, like you said, try to keep it less than 10 policies for review, but did quite a few legislative changes. That's what's necessitating all these, as you're seeing here.
We have a choice on those.
Yep.
You want one motion for all three sections, Andy, or take them separately?
So we would, or we could potentially waive the second reading of the review and the rescind, but bring the item number 2 back for the second reading next month as new policies, right?
Yep. So I think you can take 1 and 3 together and then make a separate motion for the first reading of new policies. If you wanted to do it in 2 separate.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the policies in section 1 and waive the second reading, and approve the section 3 rescinding those 3 policies and waive the second reading of those as well.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and second for those items. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We'll be under group 2 there.
I'll also make a motion to approve the first reading of the new policies in section 2.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the first readings, the new policies listed in section 2. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item G, personnel, we have hiring, lane advancement, and a volunteer position. I think we could take all 3 of those at once.
When's the large group speech season? That's typically what, January, February, March? Is that when you do those things, or?
Practice will start this fall.
Oh, okay, all
Yep, and the actual competitions in January.
right.
So we want to thank Lenny Ditzworth for stepping forward.
Who's the individual speech coach?
And
Any other discussion or questions on everything listed there?
I'll make a motion to approve those as listed there.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the hirings, lane advancement, and volunteer positions as listed. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Announcements, dates to remember.
Again, school pictures starting tomorrow, 2nd through 5th grade. We'll have their pictures taken tomorrow, 6th through 11th grade on Wednesday. And then our preschool through 1st grade on Thursday, so smile pretty. And then like I kind of alluded to, homecoming week is next week. The only revision, student council met, the homecoming dance is not gonna be on Saturday this year. It's gonna be after the football game on Friday night. So that's my only change for homecoming week activities. You can see, like I had alluded to before, coronation's Wednesday, but we've got a host of other student activities going on that week, along with transitional kindergarten and kindergarten parent-teacher conferences that Monday, a week from tonight. The week after homecoming's hot lunch week and the book fair. That's always a busy week. Parents are invited to eat lunch with their students throughout the course of that week, visit the book fair, and a lot of different activities scheduled for that week after homecoming in the elementary. Mass band performance is coming up in first Friday in October, so Central Lyon and George Little Rock bands will perform together. And then the following evening, we've got the high school pops concert. So our next scheduled board meeting's on the 11th. There's a no school day, it's teacher professional learning on the 11th. But does anybody have any issues with a meeting on the 11th?
Is there anything else in the school calendar?
8th grade volleyball.
Okay.
At West Lyon is what I've got.
Okay. that should be over.
I was just standardized earlier tonight, so.
I suppose they're seventh grade too, but that would be the
probably.
Seventh grade's probably at home.
Probably.
Usually
Eighth grade's
opposite.
Yeah, that's,
Stick with that.
works.
Okay. All right, thanks for that, Mr. Jorth. Entertain a motion to adjourn when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.
Is there eighth grade volleyball tomorrow? It was listed as a question mark on our, okay. On our-
Well, at least according to my sources.
I would say he's
The coach
reliable.
should be there if there is, right?
If he's not gonna be there, I'm not gonna be there.
Mr. President, would you like to do signatures before we get into the evening?
No, I think just
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, there was a question mark on the calendar that I saw, so wanted to double check.
This is well as my mother-in-law, so you can